This is Chin Music.
Welcome to episode 2 of Chin Music, and holy shit, what a day it was of cricket. Ashes Test cricket. It didn't disappoint. Baz ball, maybe some people called it village cricket, but at the end of the day, 19 wickets fell for 295 runs. Mo, I want you to make sense of this. You've captained teams, you played in Perth. I don't know what the hell was going on. England, they came out, they bazballed the shit out of it for 30 overs. We thought Smudge and Labuschagne, well, they were going to get him behind it. They did, they tried, and at the end of the day, they're well behind. So let's start from the top. Starkey getting it done. Wicket in the first over, always seems to get it done. 7 for 58. What did you make of his bowling performance and that batting performance of that England team?
I mean, that's a really big question, Sock. I don't know where to start, but I think with Starkey, that first over, he can go for. We all know he takes a lot of wickets, but out of the three seamers that we have in that Australian lineup, you wouldn't call in the most accurate. In the current lineup, but in the typical Australian lineup, he's probably not the most accurate. And that first over, he did not miss. For all 6 balls, perfect line, perfect length. Zach didn't, he let a couple balls go. And I think what Mitch did really well, and he has done over the last couple of summers, is once the ball stops, once he sees that the ball's not swinging, or as a bit more of a variety, he just turns that seam, or what we call a 3/4 seam or a wobble seam, and he just tilts the seam over. It's almost like he doesn't want the ball to swing. It's not quite a cross seam because you still want to give the ball an opportunity to hit the seam and nip. So. He just turns that seam on a bit of an angle, which is the exact ball that got Crawley. It's also the exact ball that bowled Ben Stokes back through the gate, sort of nipped back. It's also the same ball that he bowled Ben Stokes with at the Gabba a few years ago at the Ashes, where, he's basically, it stops him from trying to swing the ball. And ever since he's developed this wobble seam ball, and a lot of bowlers have it in world cricket, but for Mitch, it's given him a new lease on his bowling, I think, and it often does with some bowlers, because I think with that wobble seam as a bowler, that the ball's not going to swing. So mentally, you're like, well, I can't overpitch because it's not going to swing. So your body mechanics just change. You get up and over it. You usually bowl a slightly more, I guess, defensive length rather than getting a bit full and attacking, but. And with that comes, tends to be a little bit more seam movement as well than maybe, especially guys like Mitch, where sometimes, when he's trying to swing the ball too much, he might undercut the seam a little bit and not get the ball to seam. But when he bowls that wobble seam, he's got a really good chance of nipping the ball away from the right-handers and into the left-handers, which we saw today really well. So, that was brilliant. We spoke about it yesterday on the preview, Sock, that, we wanted either Gaz or Starkey to stand up in this inexperienced bowling attack, and hasn't Starkey done that? 7 for 58 off 13 overs. Whenever we needed a wicket, he came on, he cracked the game open again. But I think a big moment for me today was actually Doggett getting Harry Brook out. What do you make of that? And do you think Brook now, after that dismissal, do you think that's going to bring, that's going to be some targets for the series moving forward?
He's a cowboy, man. Watching his innings, some of his shots, he is 2 foot outside leg. Starc's on a heater, right? I think when he bowls that scrambled seam, he can run in and trust his action and bowl absolute heat. And I think he did that. But I love the way that Brook just went, I don't care what the scoreboard is. I'm just going to come out and play my shots. And there's a couple of shots there where he's backing away 2 foot outside a leg, hitting the ball through the covers. He got undone, right? So Doggett's bumped him. Got a tickle down the leg side keeping. And I think it is an area that Australia will target, particularly all of them. And with their bowling lineup, that's how they attacked our batters. So I think we've maybe exposed a little flaw in Brook. But at the end of the innings, I'm looking at that bowling lineup, and if we could surmise it, Starc 7 for 58, Boland, when it's 6s, none for 60, a guy that we're talking about. What do we make just as a general overview of that bowling attack? Are we happy with the way that Scotty Boland bowled, or are we seeing some warning signs there with him and Doggett as the backups to the lead man Starc?
Yeah, I think I think by Barrel standards, or by Scotty Boland standards, I don't think I've ever seen him get driven down the ground as much as he did today. I know we go to Perth and we talk about pitching the ball up, and bowling a little bit fuller. But if anything, I think he might have been searching a bit too hard today, trying to bowl a little too full. And I think especially to these batters, these English batters who are happy to take the game on, you can actually probably bowl a little bit more of a defensive length because they're happy to drive. So I think against other sort of maybe more defensive teams who, might be wanting to leave the ball more or a bit more circumspect on the drive, then, yeah, you do have to pitch the ball up to, try and get the nicks, to try and even invite the shots. But I think with this team, this English team that the Aussies are going to face, you probably don't need to go searching as much. I think they're going to come to you. And I think we saw that with Starc. He turned to that scramble seam and that slightly more defensive length pretty quickly. And, Scotty doesn't really bowl the scrambled seam as much because he gets that seam up really straight and he can get it to nip both ways anyway with that seam trajectory. But I just felt, if anything, he was just a little bit full this morning, that's all. And, that's a pretty easy mistake to make when you go to Perth because you always get told you want to bowl a bit fuller there. But I just think maybe to this batting order, he could probably just err a little bit more on like a one-day cricket length or a slightly more defensive length because they're probably going to want to drive at you anyway. So he'll be a little bit disappointed with that, but he's done it. He's done the business so many times in Test cricket. He's been doing the business in Shield cricket leading into this. I think he'll make that adjustment for the second innings. Very rarely does he bowl 2 or 3 bad spells in a row. So, I think he'll be better for the run. But having said that, Australia will be desperate to get Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood back into that team as soon as possible. There's no doubt about that. But, unfortunately, they don't have him for the rest of this test. Now, Socky, let's talk about our batting. Let's talk about our batting in response. This was basically a carbon copy of day one Australia versus India last year when we're probably walking into tea, or after bowling them out midway between lunch and tea, we're all pretty happy with ourselves.
30 overs.
Yeah.
Insane.
Couldn't be happier. But then it starts to unravel. What do you make of it?
Talk about first impressions with Starkey, right? And just back on bowler, I think he was the difference in the wrong way for the team. None for 60. You look through the England bowling lineup, they were all effective. Cast went at 4.5, but he took 2 wickets and some big ones at that. Scotty bowling on the bowling end, when you're comparing those scorecards, I think he was the difference in the wrong side. So I'm seeing a lot of warning signs there. First impressions. We've all talked about Jofra Archer and Mark Wood and the impact they're going to have on this series. Well, it didn't take long, did it, for Jofra Archer to get it right. And it was against, this, I guess people would say, unstable batting lineup, even though we do have Marnus at 3, but it was a beautiful ball to weather. We'll talk about Bolo getting it wrong full. Well, Jofra Archer got it right full. And that's the difference with airspeed. And that is exactly what England has brought. They've brought this fiery, quick cartel of bowlers. They've dropped
I think
Bashir.
you're spot on there, just in terms of that airspeed. Like, he's done Jake Weatherall for pace there.
100%. And I think Doggett got done for pace. I think Joe Root got done for pace, trying to close the face on straight. Brendan McCullum has come over with a game plan, and so has Ben Stokes, right? It was pretty clear. He kept them fresh and he wanted them hungry, and we saw that the gun was consistently higher for their bowlers against us and some unfamiliar dismissals. So what do I make of that batting lineup? Smith and Labuschagne went about it completely different to England. England went hard. They're bazballing it. They're going at 5 and 6. They're just taking it on. We thought the appropriate way was to absorb pressure. Get that ball soft, get it 40, 50 overs old. But we didn't have a plan. It didn't work. That plan of trying to get the ball soft, we saw Steve Smith get squared up. We saw so many unusual things happen in that game. Hit back elbow 2 to 3 times, wafting at balls outside off. That has to do with the speed, and then squaring up and nicking one. These are unusual dismissals for mind. And I think the Australian batting lineup as a whole is rattled. They're rattled by this speed. They're rattled by back-to-back consistent fast bowlers. And I think after day one, McCullum and Stokes has got this completely right. And the Aussies are in a lot of trouble, Mo.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting take. I actually, when I was watching Steve and Marnus bat, they faced a few balls. I know they didn't end up getting runs, but I was thinking I thought in that partnership, this was going to be the difference for the Ashes this year. That's the partnership for me where, I think Smudge got up to about 40 balls and Marnus faced 30 balls or something like that. But, it also didn't help that Marnus had to open. I think.
What the hell? Where's Aussie? What the hell is going on there?
here?
So
I'm not
he's
sure what's happened.
unwell. So he's unwell, but I don't get
was it sick? I thought it was. I thought he had an external knock.
Yeah, no, I think he took the catch at first slip, then went missing. Smudge was ushering at the crowd. Remember, like, get him out here because he's going to have to bat. Okay. Yeah, right. So he comes in at 4, and Bryden Cast just sorts him out again.
I just think with this Australian team, I think we need Marnus and Smudge facing as many balls as possible and trying to do what they did today, but hopefully with a little bit more protection from the new ball. So we don't want Marnus. I know we would personally. I don't want him opening the batting. I want him at 3, and I want Smudger at 4. I want Smudger coming in hopefully after the openers have finished their first spell, and then he only has to get through maybe one. Jofra's second spell. And I think what we saw, even by the time some of their English bowlers were coming back in the second and third spells, the pace wasn't quite what it was in the first spell.
Time. Yeah, mid-130.
And I know it's still quick and it's still fast, but a player like Steve and Marnus's quality, if they were out there, the last 20 minutes before play, they would have found that a lot easier as opposed to Alex Carey and Gary Lyon and Starkey having to face those balls. So I think there was something going on there. I'm not sure why, but I think Aussie not opening the batting hurt. And then, it all happened very quick. But that partnership, as I started with, Marnus and Smudge, I absolutely loved what they were trying to do. They were getting peppered. I loved that they were trying to absorb it and they weren't just trying to hit themselves out of it. They were trying to soften that ball up. They were trying to get through it. But you're right in terms of a plan. How are we going to get through it? We didn't get through it this game. Or this innings, but there's nothing surer than when both of them walk out to bat in the second innings that they're going to get peppered by high speed and short pitch. And I know they're both great problem solvers, but they're going to have to solve that one pretty quick because you called it yesterday that there's going to be high speed and there's going to be short pitch. And, as you mentioned, like we saw Travis's dismissal, Marnus's dismissal, Smudge's dismissal, I think all the case of a little bit of, heat flying, beans are running, Usman's dismissal, 4 of the top 5 there, all on the back of short pitch and pace. So it's definitely created a bit of spice in this Australian batting order.
So I'll say that, right? You say that the airspeed has rattled us, which it has. Jofra Archer, 2 for 11 off 9. He's unplayable, almost in those conditions. Couldn't score off him. England had done their homework. Mark Wood, 5 overs for 18, but got the gun over 150. Who's the guy that does the damage? It's not the guy with the airspeed. It's Ben Stokes. So it's almost like the release guy, the release bowler. And I think over the last 18 months, Ben Stokes has almost been their best bowler. And today he proved it, 5 for 23. And they weren't just wickets. They were partnership breakers, happy to mix his lengths up. He looks fit. He missed out with the bat, obviously with the nice Mitchell Starc delivery to knock over the top of his pegs, but came out with the ball and made a statement. This is what you want to see. If you're an England side, Roots missed out, unusual dismissal, but Ben Stokes, wow, 5 for 23, unbelievable bowling performance off the back of some really good fast bowling.
Yeah, it was. He came in, a lot of the damage had been done. Obviously, I think the first 4 or 5 wickets had been taken, but he got Cam Green out with just really smart bowling, I think. Really nice bowling, turned that seam around, went the away swinger. And it wasn't much move. It's not like the ball was swinging miles. It was just enough, and it only has to do just enough. But even that shot from Cam Green, I felt that was almost like Zach Crawley in the first over of the game. And I'm sure he was on 20 and he'd faced 40 balls, but I'm sure when he walks off, he'll be thinking, I could have easily let that go. That wasn't a half volley. That wasn't an easy drive. That was a pretty high risk, type of drive, especially over there in Perth. But it just seemed like that type of day. It was just a manic day. It's almost like you get called into the, this environment, the way Travis got out and then the way Alex Carey got out with, 20 minutes to go in the day with a third man in. And you can tell he's trying to lay that off finer, over the slips rather than over the third man. But is that a risk worth taking at that time when you've got a field, there's a fielder in that general vicinity? It was all happening. And maybe to Alex's defense that he's thinking, I'm just trying to score some runs here with the tail. But, I don't know. It just seemed out of character by the Aussies, and we're going to have to answer. There's going to be more questions with the short pitch. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Good, and it leads me to the next question. Australia got bullied today. There's no doubt. Steve Smith got peppered. He got hurt. He got hit on the hands. Alex Carey's playing balls outside leg stump, get caught at third man. Travis Hedge jumping around. Cameron Green probably looked our most settled, gets lidded. All right, the Aussies are rattled. This is fast. This is intense. This is in your face. How do the Australians...
It's a bit like this podcast.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just fired up and my beans are spinning. It's 10 o'clock at night. Yeah, I should be over in Perth. How do the Aussies answer this question tomorrow, Mo, going into this game, moving forward? If history is anything to go by, the wicket will flatten out. England will have the best of the conditions. What does Australia have to do?
Mate, I actually couldn't agree more there, Socky, in terms of I think Australia are well behind the game now. I know, we're probably only 40 runs behind, but it's our bowlers now that have to bowl twice in 2 days. Their bowlers, again, they've had, sure, they got bowled out, but their bowlers have come in, they've done the business, bowled us out, and now their bowlers get to go up and have a spell. And we're back out on our feet, and they are in the box seat. Starc has already got 13 overs into him. He's probably going to have enough. And he's as fit as they get. So's Doggy, so's Barrel. They're all fit, but they're not robots. And, if we don't get early wickets tomorrow with the new ball, I think things could get ugly very quickly for us. The way that these guys score runs, how quickly they score runs. Yeah, they're going to bring some opportunities into the game, but we need to make the most of tomorrow's new ball. And if we don't, look out. I think it's going to be, it could be, the first test against India repeated, which we don't want, but we're going to need to make some inroads tomorrow. We're going to need to get Root and Brook in early while the ball's still really hard. Because I felt even though Stokes came on and took Pfeiffer, I still felt like that was just good bowling. It's not. I didn't feel like the wicket was doing as much. The ball was softer when he was bowling, and he came on and he created stuff. But a lot of it was just, I felt, erratic batting, and maybe live and on the field, it's doing more than what we can see on the camera and on, when you're watching in the crowd or watching on the on the screen. But it didn't look like it was doing everything. So I think tomorrow's going to be, as you mentioned, the best day to bat. And I think if we don't make the most of that first new ball in the second innings, we're going to be in some trouble.
Well, I look forward to chatting to you again tomorrow, Mo. I mean, what an interesting first day. 19 wickets have fallen, plenty of questions, plenty of bruises in the Australian lineup. And I think, as you quite rightly said, England would go into the sheds tonight feeling pretty good about their efforts. I can't wait for tomorrow. I can't wait to see what Australia's response is going to be, because right now they're a long way behind. From an Australian point of view, that new ball is going to be important. And I think England batters, you know what? I think they've been vindicated in the way they want to go about it. And we're going to see Baz ball 5+ and over. It's going to be exciting to watch. So can't wait to chat to you again tomorrow night.
And you, mate, can't wait for tomorrow. One thing I will say, this English cricket team is fantastic to watch. And I'm going to love watching what Australia do to counter punch. Tune in tomorrow. Chin Music, Fanatics TV.
That was Chin Music. Like and subscribe for more.